Hello everyone and welcome to the third episode of Passionate Marketers. I'm Gaurav Mendiratta, the CEO of SocioSquares, and today our topic of discussion is multi-channel marketing. I have two expert panelists with me today, James Alexander, who's a creative director with over 15 years of experience in this space, and Ari Banerjee, who's the CEO of Consumer 51. So before we jump into the topic, I would request James and Ari to share a little bit about themselves.
Sure. So as you said, I have 15 years of experience in creative marketing. Been in a lot of different roles and hats in marketing, and primarily worked in software, financial services, healthcare, tech, a little bit of everything. Background's actually in copywriting, and that's kind of what got me into SEO, digital marketing, and eventually creative direction.
Thank you, James. Thanks for coming out.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm Ari Banerjee, and my background has been on the creative side almost 20 years now, where I've worked in different roles within the agency, also on the corporate side. And just a side note, that James and I have actually worked together for the last, I guess, almost a decade. So
Cool.
It's good to join you guys on this panel.
Well, thanks for making time, Ari. Appreciate it. So coming to today's topic, right, multi-channel marketing. Before we deep dive into this subject, let's think about multi-channel and what it has become today, right? Today, a campaign could start with a simple email marketing campaign, but to follow it up, because you know the email of the person, you can target them on Facebook, right? If you have their phone numbers, you can do an SMS blast to them. You can follow it up with a snail mail if you have their address. You could show them a video on YouTube. But all these channels, how do you use them effectively? What is the right way, right? So Ari, why don't you share how you are using multi-channel marketing for your business?
Sure. So when I think about channels, I actually think of it in more of a broader context. The way I think about it is it's not just channels in terms of media that I'm using, but also channels in terms of sales. So we have partnerships with tech companies like Expression Engine and HubSpot, and people come in through that channel. So we have to create specific marketing for those channels. We also have other channels where we specialize in financial marketing, and people come in through that channel. So it's thinking about channels in really the broadest sense, and how am I going to engage people who are following the channel because they need to get to a specific solution.
That's interesting. So you talked about bringing in customers, and James, before the session, you were talking about the funnel. Can you elaborate on that, and can you share with our viewers that how does multi-channel marketing fit with the marketing funnel?
Sure. So I always map the campaign, the multi-channel marketing campaign, against the funnel, and I think about what's the right medium to build awareness, to build trust, to deepen that relationship, to nurture it, before we get to that point where we ask for a sale, before we look for conversion. And then, of course, what medium is right for that post-purchase loyalty and brand evangelism, value add, anything to kind of deepen the relationship and retain the customer. So I'm always mapping it against the funnel. And I'm also just thinking about, what's the right way to kind of spread that message across all of the mediums. The same thing shouldn't be said on each medium. You certainly want reinforcement, but there's different things you can kind of dial up and dial down per medium.
Interesting. So one question often comes to mind. This notion is definitely out there that if your brand is new, it takes about 7 to 13 exposures or more for the customer to remember your brand. Mm-hmm. Now, a regular marketer or an advertiser might just remarket the communication to the same consumer using a pixel, maybe on one channel, maybe on multiple channels. But is that the right way? Can they use different channels and increase impact? James, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. I think it depends upon the particular industry and that particular user. I think that there's definitely a case where you might want to retarget on a particular channel multiple times because that's the right place to be. But I think that some users are more receptive to media and messaging on certain channels, and it's hard to know that at the outset. And you can really reinforce what you're trying to communicate by hitting email, and then maybe it's a direct mailer, social content, and so on.
Interesting. Ari, you were talking about Expression Engine, HubSpot being two independent pillars who bring in leads and act as channels. And James earlier mentioned about what platform, what brand does it make sense for that brand to be on that platform. How do you think about that, and what do you advise your clients that do they absolutely need a Facebook page? Do they need to be on Twitter, or how do you approach multi-channel from that perspective?
It's very interesting because I think the whole concept of multi-channel has emerged because consumers have become more multi-channel. If you go back 30 years, 40 years, the typical day looked like waking up in the morning, reading a newspaper. For those who are smart people, they would read 2 newspapers. And then they go to work and they turn on their channel on the way, listen to radio, and come home and watch TV. So that was it. Today's consumers, they have all of that and more in a mobile phone. So that's really like the biggest, I would say, analog to digital converter. So when you talked about digital pixel or tracking users, it all comes from understanding the user and what channel, what does their consumption pattern look like. So I think the best way to think about using channels is what channel are they going to make those decisions. So to James's point, where am I going for awareness versus where am I going to really make that consideration about buying or closing a deal. And that's really important to understand when thinking about multi-channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just add that, I think one mistake that I've seen companies make is that they want to hop on that next bandwagon. It's trendy. 10 years ago, it was Twitter. And I saw a lot of companies get on that and not really be ready for it. They didn't really know what they were doing. And there was kind of damage done to the brand by overzealously trying to be part of the next trend. I think you have to kind of consider, where do you really belong? There's limited resources, capital and personnel-wise. Where do you want to put your efforts? Understand where your users are at and where you can make the biggest impact.
Interesting. So you suggested taking the customer approach, right? And there are 2 theories in that, right? Even if you're a B2B business and your customers are primarily on LinkedIn and email, the same people might be on Facebook, right? Same people might be using Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes marketing guys use that as a pitch to differentiate their offering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can target the same people, just upload the email list and
Right.
Facebook will find those people for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you address that?
Well, for me, I think that, so when you were saying marketing guys use that as a pitch, you mean when they're basically trying to
Right. Get the business on the
Sure,
ground,
sure. That might be part of the pitch. That isn't really the way we've ever gone about it. We really want to do right by the client. But what I would say is that, there's a different mindset that we're in. A lot of times clients talk to me and they think, oh, well, Facebook is the place to be, or such and such is the place to be, Instagram. And I think, but are your customers in the buying mindset? Is that where they want to be, learning more about building a relationship with your product, with your brand? And many times it's not. And the right advice is to say, look, don't put your energy there. There's no need to persuade a customer to get a client into something where they don't belong. There's always more marketing opportunities where their users are at. So it's kind of, I think, it's an unfortunate approach that some marketers take and try to drum up some new business.
Interesting. But going back to the point you made, the customer, if they are on multiple channels, in some ways, what the point James is making can be tackled by the communication you show them, which might vary. If they are on LinkedIn during the business day, it might be a white paper download. It might be some information which makes them knowledgeable.
Right.
If it's the evening and they are on Insta or Facebook, it might be showing them the culture or the office videos of a party, right?
Right.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the point you just made about context is really important. I see a lot of people across the board, agencies and on the corporate side, where they're working together as clients, and they might be on LinkedIn sharing business stuff, but then they're also maybe friends in personal life. So then they're sharing photos of their kids or parties, and I think it's thinking about things so that it's not forced. It should not appear forced. Now, sharing if that same person went from LinkedIn and on Facebook and started to post white papers, it just might be more awkward than actually just being natural and doing what comes naturally.
I'll follow up on that. I think the concept to consider in this, because you're absolutely right. You can take that message and you tailor it to the funnel and the medium, but at the same time, it doesn't work everywhere, and that's because the brand has an intrinsic DNA. And it can't be everything to all mediums and all people. I've seen so many companies try to be something they're not, or try to be somewhere they're not. And I think ultimately people feel that, they sense that. People aren't stupid, and I think it does more damage than good. And I think it's better to really be grounded and just put your marketing efforts where they really belong.
Let's talk about planning a multi-channel marketing campaign. We recently did a campaign for our own SaaS offering where we started with email, then we retargeted on Facebook, and we were in parallel running a LinkedIn campaign, and our sales team was also reaching out to folks through LinkedIn. And we quickly ran into this hurdle where the couple of folks who were running the email campaign were not in sync with the sales team, and the LinkedIn marketing guy needed much more creatives than the Facebook ad guy. So how do you plan resources? What do you anticipate would be required? James, can you talk about it from a creative perspective?
Sure. So a couple things. I think that the biggest impediment to really successful multi-channel campaigns is that coordination, the interdepartmental communication and processes, sales, moving in lockstep with marketing, with inventory, with every aspect of the organization that needs to get involved. I think that's rare. I think I often see multi-channel campaigns that are more 2 or 3 channels, and they're not really fully tapping into the full spectrum of where their audience is at, simply because of these reasons. From a creative standpoint, the success of the creative really comes down to the creative team being solidly rooted in the brand positioning, this big idea that translates into an emotional concept, or I should say an emotional touch point, and then extending that creative across the funnel to each medium in a way that's appropriate, that works to the strengths of that medium. Here's an example. Video. You would obviously want to lean toward a visual communication style rather than excessive voiceover or copy on the screen or something like that, because that's the best practice with the medium. You're pithy and succinct on social media. You're really actionable in an email. So it's all of these sorts of things have to be taken into consideration. But I think the way that it all works together is everyone's on the same page about the brand, and there is a very clear, solid idea at the core of the brand positioning.
Right.
I'll just a point on that. I think that's really true and we'll see that play out. 2020 presidential campaign, right? Every candidate is going to use all these media channels that are available, every single one of them. But at the end of the day, what's going to really stand out is what does that brand appeal? What positions are they advocating? And how much acceptance there is in the public to actually elect that person. So to your point, it comes down to not just how many channels are we using, but how effective is our message that we are putting out across these channels.
Mm-hmm. Got it. That brings me to my next question, which is people coordination is understandable and planning can fix that. But what about technology and tools? Is today's technology helping people run multi-channel marketing campaigns better? Or since you're a HubSpot partner, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think some of the things that we always wish we knew, we actually can today. And that's the beauty of using tools that actually allow you to be connected. So we use HubSpot. We have clients that we use automation for. The beauty of doing that is I know where they are in the funnel, what pieces they've engaged with, on what channel, and I can see a full picture. So if I send out an email with an estimate, I'm not sitting there wondering, did they actually get it? Did it go to the spam folder? What's going on? I can actually see how much time they spend on which page of the estimate and when they've seen it. So those tools are there. I don't have to guess. And those are tools that are really available to any business today. And the smarter businesses are actually adopting those tools so they can get more work done instead of making those follow-up calls or spending more time in actually doing things manually.
Interesting. That reminds me of a tool we recently came about, but haven't tried it yet, called drip.com. I think it's similar in a way that you can plan your workflows and schedule multi-platform campaigns and not worry about it too much. So coming towards the end of this session, I really want to talk about what lies in the future for multi-channel marketing and how do you guys see it shaping up in the remaining of 2019 and 2020. James, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but one thing we can count on is, last I looked, there's 1,000 plus MarTech platforms. So, you can count on more of that, and more platforms, for users to engage. What I would like to see is companies developing the internal processes to be able to do more and utilize more. I don't know if that's just an idealistic dream of my own, but that's my hope. But all I can say is there's going to be more platforms and more MarTech and more ability to track user behavior and have more targeted, effective marketing.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, what I think about the future, I think we're just scratching the surface. I think tomorrow you will have an AI bot coming and giving you not just a packet from Whole Food, but they'll say, hey, Amazon asked me to give you a hug. And I think that's the future of multi-channel, is that we're going to get into really utilizing all our senses, and marketers will have so many more options at their disposal because that is where consumers are going. And we are, in a way, just following consumers. So that's where I see the future. I don't think that's going to happen in 2020, though, or 2019.
Interesting. So to sum it up, what we covered today is multi-channel marketing is definitely interesting. It is definitely better than just showing your ads on one platform and remarketing into the same user through that platform. Following the consumer, focusing on what platforms they are active on, as long as it makes sense for the business, and not try to spread out too much. Having processes, having a strong core message, and definitely use the marketing automation platforms like HubSpot, Drip, and others. Thank you guys. Thank you for taking the time. This was really great, and I hope our viewers enjoyed it as much. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me.